Hello, welcome back to another Ramen Show. I'm JMJ Booksquare, and today we are starting a video on the Dustin, I think is how you pronounce his last name's universe. It consists of 3 books. You've Reached Sam, When Haru Was Here, and You Found Oliver are the 3 books that it contains, and we'll talk about all 3 individually here in a second. And I'll walk you through the whole process, how this is going to happen if you've never seen I read all these books for you videos that I make over here on this channel. That being said, first things first, let's talk about a book that I personally wrote that you can buy right now. And it's got Gunshot Residue. This is the complete edition. All 3 novellas in one. Those 3 novellas are these top 3 right here. It's Gunshot Residue, P49, and Mr. and Mr. St. James. It's just them combined. There is an epilogue, and then there is a next on. So like essentially, it'll just tell you kind of where the world is going. These are completed though, so you can read the whole thing, and there is a conclusion, whole 9 yards. These are spicy romances that are spy novels. So essentially, we have our main character, Alex. He believes something's going on with his marriage. They've been married for 5 years. DeMarcus, it turns out to be a spy, and he finds that out. He gets involved in a bunch of different conspiracies and stuff. The 3rd book, Mr. and Mr. St. James, has a lot of similarities to a movie called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which I adore. I also love the TV show as well, in case you've seen that. Not very much like the TV show, much more like the movie. And that was one of my inspirations for when I started these characters in this. There's a few other little fun things, such as them going to therapy and a few other things that were pulled directly from that source material, but it does evolve and creates entire own atmosphere. But anyway, that's my book. We can move on from it. I have a lot of videos talking about it. I'll link a playlist in case you're curious. Okay, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into these. Now, technically, Dustin Thao has written 3 books. Only 2 of them are interconnected. However, I've been told the middle one is also connected. I don't know exactly how yet. So we have You've Reached Sam, which is the first book, which is the book we're going to talk about right in a minute. And You've Reached Sam got a companion novel, which is called You Found Oliver, which follows a character from You've Reached Sam as his entire story. And then we also have When Haru Was Here, which is a side story, essentially following a different character. I think they're all in the same town. I don't really know how they're connected. However, it's not listed as being part of the universe. However, all the research I do saying I do need to include it in this video, so we are. I'm also going to read these in publication order. So we're going to start with this. I read this one, then we're going to read this one, and then we'll finish out with this one. At least my reading order. But now, the way you've seen it down below, because there are chapter times down below. For the books themselves, I'll probably do half non-spoiler, half spoiler, just because you can technically read them all as standalones. You don't have to read them together. So just to give you a heads up, that's probably how it's going to be. And there will be chapter times linked down below for each section in case you're interested. But also the order of me talking about these could be different. I could start with the middle one if I don't think it has any context to the other 2. I could just review. It could just be these are together and this is separated. It could be exactly how I'm holding them. I don't know yet. That being said, these are now apart away from the conversation because it's not necessary. Let's start with You've Reached Sam. This has been on my radar since it came out. I think it was like 2019 or something is its release, and it's been on my radar 2021 actually, sorry, since its release. Was it on a TBR or anything? No, I just knew it came out. I just knew it was a thing. I knew people were talking about it. I don't really love sad books that are sad. I just gonna be honest with you. However, I do like heartbreak. I am fascinated by heartbreak, and I do love reading things that are dedicated to it. I like coming up with concepts that are surrounded by breakup and surrounded by heartbreak. If that's through grief, if that's just through loss of a relationship, whatever it might be. And so the concept of this does intrigue me. However, it just wasn't enough for me to want to go run and grab a copy and read it myself. The reviews are always really strong for these as well, and I'll tell you my rating at the end for this first one. So non-spoilerly, this follows Juliet as she is in a relationship with Sam, and we learn really early on that he has passed away and she is having a hard time dealing with this. They spent the last 3 years of their lives together and building out the rest of what they're going to do. They picked out colleges that were similar, they picked out places, went apartment hunting during their senior year, and now her senior year is ending, and the entire thing, her entire life is getting moved on, and she's just lost her person, essentially. And so we're following her. The book opens with her deciding she's wanting to just forget him entirely. The pain is too much, and she just cannot move forward with this. She's not gone to any funeral. She didn't go to anything. The entire town is celebrating who he was as a person, even if it doesn't really seem like they should be, but they are. because of this tragic accident that did happen, which I will talk about in the spoiler section. It's not like super far in the book, but like I feel like it's far enough that it's not included in non-spoiler. She, after deciding she's going to get rid of all of his stuff, actually ends up regretting this decision and losing everything, and then she ends up calling him, and he picks up the line, and it follows the story that follows afterwards. There is a question of what's happening. Is it real? Because we are talking to someone that is not here, and we'll talk a little bit how I feel about that as well, as I do have thoughts. I landed on a 3.75 because I'm going to review this as if it's just its own individual standalone. I don't honestly know how I feel. The biggest thing that I took away from this was the transitional scenes. They were beautiful. They're some of the best I've ever written. The prologue in here, which is only a handful of pages, is one of my favorite prologues I've ever read in my life. That's a 5-star. That prologue is a 5-star. The rest of the book is not so much a 5-star. There's also a few flashback chapters in here that I would also say I just enjoyed the movement of them a bit more, and so I liked being there a bit more than present day. With present day, it gets very complicated. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some spoilers. I don't have a lot to say about this, and so I don't think this section is going to be very long, but I do have some to say about it. His death is horrific. He is counted as a hero because of what he does, and she feels really guilty. There's a few people in his life that feel extremely guilty over his death. Essentially, she ends up going to Seattle to be with her dad for a period of time, and he promised to pick her up, and she arrives, and he's at a party with friends, and so he does not pick her up. Well, she calls, she's upset, she hangs up the phone, she cannot continue this conversation, and she decides to figure out a different way home. She does accomplish this, and yet he leaves the party immediately. He jumps in a car, and he's calling her a bunch to tell her he's on his way. Don't leave. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. She's not listening. She's not answering. He ends up getting hit by a truck. His car ends up being completely totaled. It's a huge mess, and yet he still survives it. He gets out of the car. He walks, or he maybe flies off a cliff. Maybe he doesn't get hit by a truck. He ends up in an accident through a car, and he gets out of the car, and he continues to walk to her destination, and he is found hours and hours later dying of blood loss in the field, because the way the story presents it, it makes it seem like maybe it's possibly like he died in a hospital or something. No, it's blood loss in a field, and that is the big thing. Like I said, that's kind of revealed like 30 or 40% in, because it does help with motivations and stuff, why she's acting the way she is. She's acting not very good, but also she is grieving, so I kind of let all of that go. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Sam could be looked at a very annoying character. I mean, not Sam Juliet. Actually, they both can be looked at very annoyingly. In her mind, she wants him to live forever, and there is kind of some cute lines where they do talk about that, and he's very much against this. He believes, because he died young, that his life didn't get the choice of living on, and she kind of does make him live on longer with his music. So some things, she wants to be a writer. That is what she wants to do. In the epilogue, we do know that she does become a writer, and then she does move forward. He is a musician, and we do know like she ends up giving it to his band and stuff. I felt like all of that stuff didn't really work for me, because it felt a little too on the nose and it felt a little forced, so it wasn't my favorite section of the book, but it is something that she did accomplish. He was not happy about it, I'm gonna be honest with you, but like, and then when it comes to the conclusion of it all, because I'm like, okay, if he is on the phone, we need to bring someone into this so I can figure out. They do end up bringing someone in, his little sister or cousin or something along those lines, and so we do know that it's real, and that it's a real thing. She can talk to him, and then if she ever misses a call from him, the connection's dead forever. We don't understand why. We know he's in the field, but we don't understand where or anything along those lines. And this probably roots back to some type of religious afterlife that some people believes in. I just don't know which one, and I'm not done the research, I should say, either, to figure it out. But I just didn't think there's enough there for me to like really get behind the concept. I'm happy that it wasn't like she was like going crazy, and I didn't really think it was going to be that way, but I just kind of wish there was more. It ends with her not answering the phone call, breaking their connection. They do say bye, and it was at a time and a place that they both agreed on, and they both do feel like they're holding each other back. He can't move on, she can't move on, he can't, go on to other places, however you want to believe it is such. And so she lives the rest of her life, and the rest of the story is kind of told to you from her, detailing certain things that she was able to achieve because of this. Oliver is included in some of those, and so I'm curious to see what that means. But that's, we reached Sam. Skipped a bunch. Obviously, I really kept it to the main couple, and we'll see going forward how I feel about that. But that's this one. We're going to talk about You Found Oliver. You Found Oliver is the companion novel to You Reach Sam, which is not connected, which we've already talked about. so do not worry. There are chapter titles linked down below. I'll mention it time and time again. This has a non-spoilery section. This, I do feel like you need to have read You Reach Sam. However, I will put a non-spoilery section in here because it does technically not. It's not needed, but I do think it helps. Just because Juliet is such a huge character here, and she's the main character of the first book. But once again, Haru is not a part of this. If you're interested in that entire storyline and my thoughts and opinions, that'll be the next book because it's turned into something else. But there are chapter titles down below in case that's the reason why you clicked on this. I'm assuming you already know, but just in case. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and do a little non-spoilerly talk about You Found Oliver. Will not lie, I read an entire book after this. I don't have as many heated opinions, but I do have some. We do have some fun stuff to talk about in spoilers. I don't have a lot to talk. Non-spoilerly though. It only is going to be a really long review. This story follows Oliver as for the past year after his best friend Sam died. Oliver is introduced and You've Reached Sam, and we do understand in that book that Oliver probably had feelings for Sam more intimately than that Sam knew. We learn in this book some interesting stuff about that, but anyway, that's spoilery. And so he's been texting his best friend. Obviously, he died. And so he's been texting the number for a year now. And accidentally, he calls the number very much on an accident. I think he received a text that says something, or maybe it was red or something. I can't remember. Or those lines. I don't remember. There's a reason why he clicks on it, but he calls this number, and this number is connected to Ben, which is the love interest for the book, and they are connected. I don't know how to even describe this to you. They are, is it in here? I don't want to use the reference if it's not in here. It's used in the actual book. Starcross returned to Ellsberg. Okay, this is used in here. A sliding door romance is what this is. I'm not gonna, if you guys don't know what that is, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, as I did look it up and it does spoil it. Yeah, I didn't know it was a thing. I might look up more of these. I don't know. They all end like this? No. Not gonna look at more of these. He's in college. He's going to the college that Juliet didn't want to go to. He feels like he's kind of stuck where he's at, and this new guy brings him out of the show. Also, a whole entire conversation with Juliet's mom, who teaches there, who we do know in her course, and she's so much kinder here. I don't know why. I much preferred her here than I did in You've Reached Sam. But to be fair, Oliver, I think, is by far my favorite protagonist of all three. I like Juliet the best inside this book than her own. And I will also have to say that there wasn't, like, so many, like, erratic decision makings that didn't make any sense, that felt like a plot moment, that also did help my enjoyment of this book. So I landed on a 4. It is by far my favorite Dustin Thao, which does mean whatever he publishes next, I will read, because I have to read, because I landed on a 4. If this was like a 2, like some other books in this video, no. But it was a 4. And honestly, let's jump into some spoiler talk. So we're moving into spoilers. Would I recommend? I think I would recommend. I don't know. I'm mixed bag. I don't think everybody's going to have the same issues I had. I had some pretty strong issues with the end of this book, which is why it was a 4. There was a period in time. There was like 7 pages worth of time that this was a 5. And it was at the very end. So the turnarounds, I was so mixed on what to rate this. So like, for instance, like with You Reach Sam, I gave it a 3.75, which was my favorite outside of this one for Dustin Thao. And I was like, no, it has to be higher than that because I liked it better. So I gave it a 4. A sliding door, in case you guys did not know, is parallel of timelines, is what the whole point of this book is. So we have Ben, who's studying astrology, and then we also have Oliver, who's basically getting into psychology, or a philosophy. That's what it is, not psychology. They live on 2 different timelines, is really what the answer is. We have our main character, Oliver, who is 6 months ahead in time, and we have Ben, who's 6 months in the past. And we realize when they call, or when they have a certain type of interaction, they switch timelines. Or actually, technically, he never switches. Ben never comes to Oliver's timeline. How Oliver can go backwards. There is a period of time where they're stuck together. That was when the book was getting into a 5-star. Other things here, Juliet is going off and doing what she wants to do and living her best life and being really happy about it, which does make him sad. Juliet became like his number 1 person. He does find other friends throughout the books, mostly protrude like because of Juliet, but like I do like them. I like their relationships and stuff. I like his relationship with school. I like how he has a bit more of a purpose, a bit more motivation. This did feel like a little bit older, and I'd like to see this author write probably adult. I feel like I would really enjoy this. The last 2 books have been college romances, and they're still YA for sure. However, I do enjoy him in this space. He has a very strong purpose in life, and that really does help. He doesn't have a purpose in not knowing what he wants to do, because when the book starts, he doesn't know he wants to do philosophy or anything or those lines. That is something that he learns throughout the process of the book and understanding, and also this this journey. We also realize that the phone it's all phone connected. The first book was also phone connected. This one's also phone connected. They don't ever really explain it. There is no explanations I've learned in this universe, this writing, which is fine. I kind of moved on from it. However, there's enough of an explanation here that I liked it. I also, if you guys did not know, a slight spoiler for other books, if I typically give a romance a 5-star that have multiversal travel where two people are falling in love in different timelines over and over again, that is a trope I fucking hate. I eat every single time. You have no idea. I fucking love it so much when two people fall in love in different timelines. So the fact that there was a period of time where I thought that they were going to fall in love in 2 different timelines and stay knowing one another, it would have been a 5. So we're going to jump a little bit further ahead in time. So essentially he does get stuck in this other time, and this is when the book started to go a little downhill because he started making choices that didn't really seem out of character. There's a bit of cheating going on, not with him, towards him as a character plot point, and that's addressed when he goes backwards in time again because he's still with this guy that ends up cheating on him, and he ends up screwing over his mom for it. The guy was cheating on him before that, and so one can only assume that he's been cheating on him for longer than that. And so because he ends up screwing over his mom, that's one of the big reasons why he actually decides, outside of the fact that like Juliet might not be going on this trip, and also he lost out on a scholarship because of him, Ben did, he decides that he wants to try to figure out how to fix this timeline. Well, the big thing here is I figured it out that it was the sky, that it was probably like black holes or something that was fucking up like space and time. They've been they're referenced quite a bit throughout the entire run of the story, and it's never confirmed. However, it's basically confirmed. For whatever reason, he ends up confessing it all to Juliet, who does not remember, and Juliet brings out the phone that gave her her final phone call with Sam, and it takes him back in time, backward. He takes him forward in time. And so he gets to live the rest of his life. However, because his phone is haywired and because something did go wrong, not really explained, he can no longer get in contact with Ben whatsoever. And so they are separated. They are separated for like 2 years worth of time. And then he basically kind of stalks him. It turns weird. I don't like the ending. Some people are going to like it. It wasn't for me. He basically stalks him, and then he ends up finding him in like Scotland or something. They meet at a thing, and Ben doesn't know who he is whatsoever, but it's like alluded to that there could be something more. Who knows? I don't know. And there's too much time passes. I would have much preferred the ending that they both knew, and that there wouldn't have been so much time, and yeah, that they would have both known. Or they both knew that I think this would have been also a fine ending, is that they both did know, but if you still want time to pass to like have that like not knowing feeling, and then it does like a flip where once they do find each other in that epilogue like I was talking about, that we realize that they both do know one another and they just start the relationship where they left off. Because I don't like it when books in particular, because I do sometimes search out this trope where it's like kind of like, I guess it's a sliding door trope. I didn't know there was like a term for it. I do sometimes search it out. I like it a bit more broader than this. I like actual different like parallel universes where it's like we're jumping and it's so different from ours and stuff like that, and they're falling in love and all these different things. And it's normally like a cycle or something, but either way, it's not important. I've also read other ones where it's more like this. Normally these tend to end in tragedies though, to be fair, because like it's kind of hard to work out either way. The moral of the story here is that the fact that like he knows so much about this dude knows nothing about him, and there is a parallel to it because like when they first start dating, because he knows so much more information about Oliver, Ben does, because of these conversations with Sam, to the point where I didn't think he was real for a minute. He is real. So there's that. They all play factors. But yeah, that's You Found Oliver. I'm landing on a 4.5. Definitely my favorite. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next book. Let's talk about When Haru Was Here. Really not great things to say about this. I landed on a 2.75. I kind of like the ending. Not gonna lie. However, I did have a lot of problems with this. This is a book that is built on a few different twists and turns. We're gonna do a little bit of an on-spoiler review, especially because it is not connected in any way, shape, or form to this, and so this is now turned into reviewing all Dustin Thao's books instead of reviewing the You Reach Sam like universe. Because this has a similar concept, and with You Reach Sam, I kind of let go the mental health aspects of this and wrote it off because they did make him a real life entity throughout that story. I won't tell you how in case you're just watching the review for this and you didn't watch the review for these. This one has a similar concept. So we're following our main character. Okay, Eric is his name. That's what it is. That's why I'm getting confused. And Daniel is the one who ends up dying. That's not really what the book is about, which is interesting because it play such a big part. So in the beginning of the story, Haru, Eric and Daniel go off to Japan, and he ends up meeting Haru in a very brief encounter. They spend several hours together, and they both decide that they like one another. However, due to the fact that he was there with Daniel, and he did believe that this is the relationship, this is the time when that relationship was going to move forward past this, like, flirting stage that they were in as friends, because he was so confident in the fact that this was going to be more than this. He decides to go against Haru. He ends up dropping his number, and they never meet once again. We skip forward several months later, like 6 or 7 months later, if I'm not mistaken, and Daniel is dead. And then he starts to experience Haru in real life, which is interesting. My biggest, so that's kind of like what the whole book is about. It mentions WandaVision because, like, I think WandaVision is an okay comp title. We'll talk about it. WandaVision did a much better job with this, in my opinion. It's also centered around grief. I can understand why it was used in the conversation. Let's talk about this. Haru as a character is fascinating at best because it's pretty well established early on that Haru is not real, that he is not physically interacting at all with this man. Also, this character, Eric, puts himself through so many, like, very dangerous situations for almost no reason whatsoever, which was very frustrating to read from. One of the main reasons why I didn't like this book. I'd say the biggest reason, and we are in full spoiler territory at this point, is the fact that it's never addressed that he has extreme mental health issues. And I guess the only way I really need to talk about this, he lost 2 people back to back, and it sent him into a very big spiral. His parents are very traditional, they did care for him, you can tell, based on their love. However, they're not from here, and so they have different beliefs and different ways they handle one another, and so they're letting him experience this by himself. I think there is a conversation there about mental health and what that would look like, because it's only him, the person who was looking out for him, who was doing the most for him, had died as well. So that's also another thing that's going on throughout this entire thing. He does have a sister. She makes many different roles, and in the beginning of the book we learn that she is leaving him, and he cannot process this grief of her leaving, but he does know that it's happening. And then we find out in the last, like, maybe 30 or 40 pages that she's been dead all along, and that it's actually been a figment of his imagination, are these things and these letters that have randomly popped up over the last year of his life as he didn't decide to go to college. He didn't, he's going from job to job. The latest job that this book mostly pertains around is him working at a Chicago theater that is specifically for, like, Broadway and stuff. He ends up in the mixes with the cast of those 2 guys he ends up with. One guy very much a predator, the other one also kind of, like, basically a predator as well. So it's an interesting conversation on that, because his sister does pop up multiple times throughout the story, and you do not realize that she is not real, whereas Haru it's very clear, in my opinion. There's signals that indicate that he's going to show up. There's long periods of time where Eric does not believe that he's not real. However, it has been proven. And there's no other characters that interact with him. Anytime any other character shows up, Haru disappears. They do end up finding each other. Like I said, I did like the ending. They very much do end up, like, coming across as with one another, which I like, and I think is really cute, and I think is really well done, and I like how there is a hopefulness at the end, which is why I got a 2.75. However, I really don't like the conversation because it ends on a hopeful note, which is great. I think that's excellent and very positive. However, there is no conversation why what's going on is very challenging and very dangerous. Like, what is happening in his life currently is extremely dangerous. He is blacking out for long periods of time and not even remembering what's going on, not remembering who he's talked to, not remembering his commitments. It is taking up a huge part of his life, and so I had a huge problem with it. I had a huge problem with it. But in several ways, it just more felt like, I don't know, it felt like an excuse to be able to write the story this way, and it just didn't feel like, I just wasn't very pleased with it. I guess I wanted more from it. I also just wanted to like it. I just didn't like Eric really as a character either. However, I'm just kind of understanding that this is kind of how he writes grief. He's very mean. There's many sequences where I felt like he's either being mean, or he's being walked over, or he's doing things to hurt himself. All those things can come back down to grief. And being mean because he's aggravated, angered that this has happened to him and that he can't get over it. Purposely forgetting things that could simply be grief mind. I mean, that's the thing. It's not called that, but you understand what I mean. So there's layers to this for sure. I didn't care for it. Like I said, he doesn't working at the theater. A lot of this book takes place at that theater or takes place around them. He meets a boy named Christian who doesn't date Asian guys, which is a great thing to talk about because this is a thing, you know, with every race and gender, especially when the person they're like going after is white or a different race. For instance, the guy that he liked, Christian, was Asian. He specifically doesn't date Asian guys, and that is a conversation that happens throughout this book. I don't really like how it's handled. I think it's pretty handled pretty accurately. I just don't think it was necessary to add into the story when there's so many other complicated things going on. I just don't think it was something else that needed to be explored. Then Christian ends up writing him off as well and basically passing him over to this other guy who I'm pretty sure drugs him twice. It's not ever clear that he does drug him twice. The first time I'm almost certain that he is drugged. The second time I think it's a little mixed bag. However, as soon as he doesn't want to have sex, he kicks him out. He does have sex with Christian though. This conversation with Daniel, which I guess I didn't talk about either, is explored a little bit. Daniel also ends up dying in a tragic accident. His sister ends up dying of cancer. These are both things that are explored as well, and she does leave things for him. She does a lot of things for him, which is very beautiful, very sweet. Like I said, she writes him letters to keep him close and to keep him understanding and try to keep him grounded, but he won't accept the fact that she's dead, so he doesn't read them until way after the point. With that being said, Daniel is someone he had a huge crush on. He wanted from a very long time, and then Daniel does propose a kiss. They end up going to Japan. He ends up meeting Haru, who's not a real person, not a real character, just a figment, so I don't even want to talk about him. And which also was like I understand in a way, like, oh, it's a second meet chance, so he's trying to find his happiness, and if you do bring back Daniel or whatever, that means that they're supposed to be together, and I think it is pretty clear that he's not supposed to be together, and he did pick someone who is kind of like a dick, but like whatever. And also, like, to be fair, any of the sequences with Daniel, it's never good. Like, I didn't like any of the sequences with Daniel. I didn't think they were cute. I didn't think they were sweet. Once again, it just felt like he was getting taken advantage of. The only time that I really did think like someone actually liked him was either with his sister, which is sad because like they weren't real sequences. And then in those ways, you know, because grief does make you get angry at the person. She was very mean and very rude, but I feel like that was very realistic in his mind how he would play it. With that being said, the other thing is also the small sequence in the beginning with Haru. The other thing I will talk about is because it was missing from this book is that I really like Dustin Theo's way of transitioning between scenes, especially from a character falling from one perspective to another. So for like in You Breach Sam, there's many moments where Sam is going like mad shit crazy and she's going through time, and it's so beautiful and so well transitioned, and there's only a few sequences like this in here, and I really do hope You Breach Oliver, which is the next one, You Found Oliver, I really hope there's more of that. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Oh my gosh, this is kind of weird, a little off there. I will put in the section of me ranking them and how I like them or not, put that clip in. Let's go ahead and rank these 3 books as I have finished all 3 books by this point in time. You Breach Sam, this is really the order. It's You Found Oliver, You Breach Sam, and then When Haru Was Here. Do I rank books based on ratings? Yes, because I rate books based on how I feel. So, 4, 3.75, 2.75, major differences. By far the most annoying, the one I would say you could skip, there's nothing there, is this one. These, I do think there's something there. I do think the newest one is better. However, I do think you need to read the first one to be able to like really fully enjoy it like I did. So, that's my thoughts on this series. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I ranked them good. I know these books are really loved, and I'm really sad not having a great time with them. I was a little nervous about that, I'm not gonna lie. I just wasn't expecting anything below a 3, really, to be honest with you. I'm gonna go read You Found Oliver. You already know my opinions. Did it go well? Hopefully. That being said, I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye. Hope you're having a good day.